You can understand why Ezra would want to ask for some protection here. He's got a whole load of gold, like hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of gold. He's traveling with a whole load of people. Some of them are very vulnerable, either very elderly or very young, and yet he knows that he's claimed to the king that God is all powerful, and so he feels ashamed, and he turns to the Lord in prayer. And this, I don't know if you picked this up in Ezra, but it's such a repeated pattern, this turning to God in prayer and asking God for help. And so often what I do is I use prayer as a total last resort, whereas what Ezra seems to do is he uses it as a first resort. It's like, we could ask the king for help. I mean, it would be really embarrassing, but we could, I suppose, do it. But no, let's instead fast and pray. And it says here that God answered their prayer, but they gave themselves, they petitioned God. Just like we were saying yesterday, they petitioned him for some help. And then in chapter 9, Ezra discovers that the people have been intermarrying with people of other races, and that was a big part of the law, that they were not meant to do that. And that's one of the things that they saw led them into sin over the years, as they began to worship the gods of these other nations that they'd end up marrying. And so Ezra sees this as a big sin. And what a lot of leaders would do at that point is they would absolutely have a massive go at the people. They say, "What are you doing? I can't believe you've done this." Ezra, again, what he does is he prays. And he says, everyone else who fears God, who trembles at his word, gathered there with them, and they prayed and they wept and they mourned and they repented together, and they asked God to not take his hand of grace and his mercy away from them because of this sin. And again, what it is he turns to God in prayer. And so often when we look around at the world, one of the things that we can be tempted to do, if we've been following Jesus, is to say, "Oh my word, look at you, look at the way that you live, look at that stupid decision that you made. Well, that's why you're in trouble, because you made that decision." We can get judgy, and we can get angry, and we can get bossy, and we can get self-righteous, and we can start telling people how to live their lives. And actually, although we do have a responsibility to communicate the life-giving truth, and that's what it brings, life, the life-giving truth of the Bible and of Jesus Christ, actually, to respond like Ezra, I honestly think if more of us in the church were able to respond like this, then we would see so much more happen and so many more people change, to come to God weeping and mourning and broken because of we see what's going on in our world, and we just know that it's wrong, and we want God to change it, and we ask him for mercy, and we ask him for help. Let's today choose to make prayer the first resort, because we want God to be our first port of call in any situation.